This program contains subject matter that may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Brian O'Day, and this is Creepy Canada. On today's program, you'll meet the Listowell Ripper, a grisly child murderer who terrorized rural Ontario, Canada, and whose ghost still haunts the jail where he was hanged. And Creepy Canada goes south to Baltimore, Maryland, to meet the people who have crossed paths with the legendary Goatman, a malevolent, half-human, half-animal creature who lurks in the forest, preying on humans and animals alike. And to Marrtown, West Virginia, to meet the Banshee, a ghost with glowing red eyes who appears wherever death is about to occur.
Every town has an urban legend. A story about a half-crazed creature who haunts Lover's Lane. His victims vanish into thin air with little but a few drops of blood to suggest what their gruesome fate might have been.
Prince George's County, Maryland is just a stone's throw down the highway from Washington, D.C. Stories about an axe-wielding fiend, half man, half goat, who haunts the wooded areas has been part of the local folklore since the last century. There have been enough mysterious missing persons cases, gruesome discoveries, to make people wonder whether Goatman is just a myth, a local boogeyman, or something more sinister.
The Goatman legend. It's kind of something we all grew up with. And the difference with us is we perceive it as more of a paranormal event versus a physical creature. Is there half man, half goat somewhere out here in these woods? I don't know. That's why we're here. The majority of the witness accounts that we've read, they're never consistent on what the Goatman looks like. So our theory is that the Goatman is a ghost or an apparition that appears differently to different people. You know, there's all kinds of stories, and I don't know the truth or any of the evidence around these stories about missing people and abductions and stuff like that, but the truth of the matter is if you've got a missing person, the case is unsolved, so nobody really knows for sure. So what we've done is we've kind of assembled a team here tonight. I've got Steve here, he's my cameraman. We also did something a little strange that you might think is weird. Because the Goatman story kind of revolves around animals, we brought a goat out with us, and the idea is that hopefully this goat will draw in some of that energy of that apparition that we believe is out here. And accompanying our goat is Wendy, and Wendy's our psychic.
As a child, I was always able to kind of have a sense of who was calling on the phone or, you know, what the next song on the radio would be. I think it's just a matter of being open to these things, being aware kind of the other plane so that these beings are comfortable communicating with you and being able to kind of receive the communication. So, you know, hopefully I'll be able to help out tonight.
Now, I know what people think, but I'm not crazy. I swear I saw Goatman. My girlfriend and I were up at this place, I guess you'd call it Lover's Lane, one night, and we just had gone up there to get some privacy. Anyway, so we were up there, and there was another car parked up there that night, and they were sort of involved, if you know what I mean. So everything was quiet for a while, but then something catches my attention out of the corner of my eye. It's dark at this point, but there is a full moon, so it's not pitch black yet. And I look, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was this tall guy, really weird looking, hunched over. Something just wasn't right about him, and I thought, Goatman. I know, it sounds crazy, but that's what I thought. and he had something heavy in his hand, and you know, legend says that Goatman carries an axe. So anyways, he's walking towards this other car, and they're sort of occupied, and thought I'd take it upon myself to honk the horn and warn them, right? So I do that, I'm honking the horn, and they turn on their car and turn on their lights. And this car just bolts out of there, right? And then this guy turns his attention to us, and he starts walking towards the truck, right? My girlfriend's screaming, I'm trying to turn over the truck, and nothing's happening. I'm turning it over, nothing's happening. My girlfriend's freaking out, and I'm starting to freak out. Just in the nick of time, the truck starts, and I slam it into drive and just peel out of there. Just as I'm pulling away, the creature takes a swing at my car. And I don't know, but all I do know is this dent wasn't in my truck before that night.
It seems that, from what I've learned, people have been talking about the Goatman for well over 50 years. Just recently have people started getting back into the legend, back into the historical events of what's happened with the Goatman in Maryland. It seems like the Goatman is attracted to areas that are wooded, also places such as lovers' lanes where teenagers go to hang out on the weekends. It appears the reason that he likes these places is because they're very secluded and out of the way of people. And if people do happen to trespass into his domain, reports have it that he's liable to massacre them with his axe.
Almost every culture in what we think of as the Western world has a myth of some kind of goat-man hybrid. There are two that you will recognize immediately. The Greek god Pan has the lower body of a goat and the upper body of a very hairy man. Pan was the god of pastures, woods, meadows, natural places. But Pan also has, shall we say, a more menacing side. The half-man, half-animal is really a marriage of intellect, reason, with the more chaotic, less predictable natural world. Really, what we're talking about here are animal instincts. The lower body, which is the goat, really symbolically represents sex at its most base. And Pan has certainly had the reputation of a lusty god. Then there's the most extreme combination of man and goat in the devil, Satan. There's nothing redeeming about this figure. In Satan, the animal side is not just lust, but a perversion of lust. So we have the other side of the coin. The animal instincts in this Satan image are always a twist away from what is human, towards pure evil.
The goat here, Muppet, is, we're using her as kind of a lure. We hope that, like I said earlier, with the animal connection with the Goatman, that whatever energy is in this area will kind of be drawn to the goat. And that's why we brought her here. So we're going to leave her here.
I'm getting a very strange sensation here. It's like there's a lot of entities and they're all talking at once, and there's a lot of fear and sadness, as if something awful happened to them here, and they're telling us to leave. But I don't think it's out of anger or a threat, but it's a warning. They're telling us to leave.
Guys!
When we come back, Goatman's predilection for family pets and stray dogs.
When it comes to Goatman, we don't have a lot of physical evidence. We have to rely on a lot of eyewitness accounts, and one story in particular is from the 1970s about a young girl's dog that went missing, and the dog's name was Ginger.
In 1971, I was a 20-year-old university student. I was rooming with the Ormond family for the summer. They had a daughter named Natalie, a lovely girl, and they had given her a golden retriever by the name of Ginger. She was a spirited little dog, and I really liked her. Anyway, my girlfriend April dropped by to visit me one day, and after supper we decided to go for a walk. And as we were walking back home, we noticed a man running through an open field. You know, the local kids around here, they used to joke about this myth of a goat man. I never really thought very much of it until then. Well, this guy, he was really tall, and he moved very oddly. When I think of it, he kind of moved like a mental patient or something. Well, we must have startled him because he took off for the trees. The creepiest thing was that before he made it there, he made this noise. It's been 30 years and I still can't describe it. It's because it wasn't human. Definitely wasn't human. The next day, the Orman girl was crying because she couldn't find her dog. So April and I decided to help her look for it. We were walking and calling its name. When we got down by the railroad tracks, we noticed something up ahead. It looked like a small animal, but it wasn't moving. As we got closer, I realized that we were in trouble. Now, this isn't very pleasant, but what we found was Ginger's head. It had been severed clean off her body. What was worse is that we couldn't find the rest of her. Couldn't find her body. We looked for it. There wasn't even a blood trail. You know, a lot of people say that, you know, a dog or a coyote did this, but they would have left a big mess. Whatever or whoever did this, he did it really cleanly, really neatly. Ginger's head was severed by something very sharp, like an axe. Well, just then I noticed there was a figure out by the tree line. It was dark. I could make out that it was a man. I immediately thought that it was that guy that we saw a couple of days ago. But then it held up what I swear was an axe. Then it made this sound. It was the same sound I'd heard 2 days ago. Believe you me, I never wanted to hear that sound again. The only thought in my mind was getting the hell out of there. It really scared us. It really did.
Ginger wasn't the only missing animal report at that time. There was an outbreak of lots of missing animals, which sparked more interest in the Goatman.
The sad fate of Ginger, the golden lab, and presumably the other missing pets, revealed a side to the Goatman that is more than just menacing. Goatman attacks his victims with discriminating viciousness. He has a particular hatred for family pets. Stray dogs are the most vulnerable, but humans are also at risk.
Over here. The skeleton.
Okay, there are several predators around here. We've got coyotes and we've got black bear, and this is a canine, a dog. And supposedly in the legend, the Goatman, he doesn't like dogs. He has an issue with them. And so here's a dog, and that's a little unnerving.
Well, the Goatman is known by legend to kill dogs and people. And if this is a dog...
When we come back, Goatman's attacks on human prey.
According to my research, in the 1930s, a woman by the name of Mary Sullivan and her infant child went missing. Soon after that, the father and the younger son also went missing as well. It's like someone was stalking the family and picking them off one by one. The family went missing in the woods on their property, and it is still the place where they see the Goatman to this day.
Well, I did some research into the origins of Goatman, and there are a lot of stories about who he was and how he became that way. Back in the 30s and 40s, the state of Maryland decided to dam the Patuxent River and make a couple of lakes. This was to be the source of drinking water for the area. It was a big operation. It meant that a nearby town would be underwater. So the state came in and moved its citizens, relocated them. But the legend goes that in doing its research, the state officials forgot one man, a goat farmer. And when the operation happened, this farmer was caught by surprise and couldn't save his precious goats and died trying. Now they say he's come back and his ghost lives in the woods and takes his revenge out, mostly on family pets, but also on human beings.
Some people say Goatman is an urban legend, but I know lots of people that have lost cats and dogs. Some people themselves even disappear, which is even stranger. The cop said 2 kids from my class just got on a bus and left town, ran away from home. Now that doesn't make any sense to me. Why did they take their cars? And why did they just leave them out here in the middle of nowhere? Somebody's not telling the whole truth.
In the late 50s, there was a family living in Mitchellville called the Glasses. They had a little boy named Bobby. One night he was playing outside in the backyard, and his father came out to sit on the back porch. It was getting late, but he could see someone was standing not far from the yard, into the woods a bit. There was something about him that was frightening, so they called the boy in.
Boy, get in the house. Now!
The father yelled at the guy, but he didn't leave.
Hey, you! Get out of here! Ha!
The father started walking towards him. The man let out some kind of a howl, not quite like an animal, but not quite human either. Then it slipped away into the night, but whatever this thing was, it came back.
I was just a little boy, but I remember it like it was yesterday. I woke up one night because something was scraping at the window. I looked up and there was this thing staring into the window at me, scraping at the glass. I screamed.
Dad! Dad! Dad!
My dad ran in and the thing took off. He went after it, but it was gone. I know what I saw, and it wasn't a person. Next day, he was looking around, and there were footprints. They weren't human. It was like a horse had been walking through a yard, hoof prints.
Go back in the house, son. I said go!
We saw it off and on for a week or two, and then it was gone. And we never saw it again. My dad didn't scare easy. I mean, he was a Korean War vet who won the Bronze Star. But this thing scared the hell out of him. That really terrified me. Look, I don't know much about Goatman. You can call it whatever you want. Whatever I saw, it wasn't human.
It was later that I linked the two events together and realized how lucky the Glass family had been. The land their house is built on is the same property that the Sullivan family owned back in the 1930s, the family that disappeared. Fortunately, the Glass family didn't join them on the missing persons list. In the end, the legacy of Goatman isn't one of a gentle creature lost in the woods, as benign as Bigfoot. We've had mysterious disappearances that remain unsolved.
I'm getting a really bad feeling here. It's like it's hard for me to breathe, and my lungs feel like they're being squeezed. And I'm feeling communications from entities different from the ones before. These are telling us to leave, but it's in a very malevolent way. And I think I better go. I'm gonna listen to them right now, and I'm gonna go.
The Maryland reports of Goatman are really interesting, even if you just look at them from the psychological point of view. We're talking about a part of the world that was once very rural. So you have this kind of clash of the modern world pushing out the natural world. And Goatman is an interesting symbol, a man who has been taken over by base nature, who seems to dislike anything that represents normal life. You know, family pets and things like that. His drawl to Lover's Lane is again a part of the whole thing, where he is pure, uncontrolled, natural impulses. It's a threat that runs deep in the human psyche.
That's great. We've just lost our another battery. It's our third battery tonight. This is actually kind of typical on these investigations. Spirit energy tends to really drain our battery sources pretty quickly. And like I said, that's battery number 3, and unfortunately, that's the last battery we have out here with us. So. Oh my God. Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea, Sean.
You know, guys, I apologize for this, but this is really bad. This is, oh my God. I think we should probably get out of here. I think we should evacuate this area and just write this off to a lesson learned. Sorry, guys, I really am. That was the most terrifying experience of my life. Look, I love doing these things, but you know what? That was way too dangerous, and I'm never coming back here again.
The Goatman is real. I believe he's real. Lots of people believe he's real. And if you don't believe he's real, come out to Prince George's County, stroll down Lover's Lane at night, and see for yourself.
Coming up next, the Banshee who haunts Marrtown, West Virginia, bringing her grim message of doom.
One night I was driving home from work when my car broke down. Work takes me all over West Virginia. I was practically in the middle of nowhere. So I pulled over to the side of the road and popped open the hood. So I took out my cell phone. I tried to call the garage, the auto club, anybody that could help me out, but the cell phone just wouldn't work. So I got so mad, I slammed the hood. Next thing I know, there's this strange woman in front of me, dressed all in black, riding a black horse. I have no idea where she came from. I tried to call out to her to say hello, to see who she was, but she just wouldn't answer me. She just kept staring at me with these eyes and coming closer and closer on her horse. I just started to get really frightened. I started to run away. I ended up in a forest, and I thought it would be a safe place to hide, but she was there everywhere I looked. I ran behind bushes and around trees, and everywhere I looked, she was there. I don't know how she did it. I was really scared, and I started running, and then I fell. And I looked up, and there she was, coming closer and closer. And then all of a sudden, she vanished. She was nowhere. All of a sudden, my phone rang, which scared me half to death because it hadn't been working. It was my sister. She had called to tell me that our father had passed away of a heart attack. A while later, I was talking to my mother a little more about our Scottish heritage, and she told me about the myth of the Banshee. I usually don't believe in stuff like that, but I do now.
In the quiet community of Marrtown, West Virginia, a ghostly woman travels the night by horse to deliver her message. a message of doom to those of pure Scottish or Irish descent. She's nicknamed the Black Fairy, and all those who've seen her remark upon her blood-red eyes. The roads along the Ohio River have been famous for Banshee sightings.
Stephen Flanagan was driving home to his farm one cold October night, when in the middle of the road, blocking his way, he was met by an old woman on horseback. He honked his horn, hoping to get the woman to move out of the way. The horse paced back and forth, but would not move aside. All the while, the woman just stared at Stephen. Stephen waited impatiently, but the horse and rider did not move. Stephen got out of his car to ask the woman to let him pass. As he approached the woman, Stephen noticed her glistening blood-red eyes. Slowly, the horse and rider began to move away until they disappeared into the darkness. When Stephen got home a short while later, he found his wife had died of a massive heart attack. When we come back, the sad tale of the Marr family's meetings with the Banshee.
The Banshee is known for her wailing cries. What she really is an Irish-Scottish attendant death fairy who attaches herself to certain Irish and Scottish clans. She wears a black shroud and she rides a horse. The Banshee actually has what they say is a loud, keening cry that can be heard into the night as she cries out for her Irish and Scottish dead. Now, she doesn't cause the death. She's not an evil figure. She only announces the death through her cries. Thomas and Mary Marr were immigrants from Scotland, a place in Scotland that strongly believed in things like banshees and witches and ghosts. Mary Marr was an autumn bride, an ill omen among the Scottish. They had several children, but many of these children died. 10 years after the Civil War, Thomas Marr got a job as a night watchman near the Little Kanawha River. In Shawnee Indian, the word Kanawha means river of the evil spirits, or river of death. During his job as a night watchman, Thomas Marr would come home early in the morning and he would tell Mary this strange story about seeing this shrouded figure on a horse, and he couldn't really tell if the figure was a man or a woman. As he would approach this figure, the horse would rear up and they would disappear into the mist of morning. On February 5th, 1876, Mary Marr awakened with a terrible feeling of dread. In the distance, she could see this shrouded figure on a horse coming up the road toward the Marr farmhouse. Slowly, slowly came this figure on the horse, and finally it came up to the front stoop. Beneath that veil across the face, Mary Marr could see these glittering red eyes.
Hello? Who's there?
And the woman didn't say anything for a few moments, and finally that woman, that banshee, pointed a bony finger at Mary Marr and said, "Mary Marr, Thomas Marr has just died. Say your prayers, lady. I bid you well. The horse reared up, and the rider and the horse once again disappeared into the mist.
Unbelieving, Mary mounted her horse and took off to look for her husband. That was not the last the Marr family would see of the Banshee. Mary Marr lived to the age of 90, and when she died, the sound of banshees shrieking could be heard outside the house. A few years after Mary's death, one of the Marr children lost his hand in a gruesome accident. While family members watched over the boy, the desperate mother tried to stop the bleeding. As she wrung out the bloody bandages on the porch, she saw a woman on horseback slowly approach the house.
Who's there?
She had heard the family legends of the Banshee and knew immediately she had come to take her son away. Desperate, she screamed to the Banshee, begging it to leave.
Go away! Just leave us alone, please!
But it would not leave. She then resorted to prayer. With every fiber in her being, she prayed that her son would live, and this horrible figure would go away. Mary's prayer seemed to disturb the Banshee, and her horse became more and more skittish. Eventually, the Banshee went away. Unfortunately, the boy died a day later, and the Banshee was heard howling outside the house upon his death. The Marr family had learned what their Irish and Scottish ancestors had known for centuries, that the Banshee was, indeed, a messenger of death.
Can you get away from the Banshee's cries? I think not. When you hear them, you should take them very seriously.
Coming up after the break, the grim tale of a grisly murderer known as the Listowell Ripper.
This program contains subject matter that may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Listowell, Ontario is a quiet village surrounded by farmland, a short distance from the theatrical town of Stratford. In the late 1800s, Listowell became the focus of a ghastly performance, one which the town hoped would never be repeated. Susan Brown was cutting through Fairview Cemetery, walking her dog one evening. Suddenly, the dog started to go crazy, barking frantically. It was quiet. There was no one around. But then Susan saw a young girl emerge from behind a tombstone and stare at her coldly. Susan felt a chill of fear as she realized this wasn't an ordinary child. She was an apparition from another time. She vanished into the shadows, leaving Susan too terrified to speak.
This is one of the scariest stories we're ever going to tell you. Every village and town has a hidden past that no one likes to speak of. Some things are just too horrible to mention. Stratford and Listowell in Ontario, Canada, will forever be connected by a past that brings together two spirits. Spirits that are joined by a horrific series of events. Events that unfolded in the fall of 1894.
On the morning of October 9th, the remains of Jessie Keith, a young girl from the Elma Township, were found in a pool of blood by the lake. Listowell had fallen victim to the most disturbing murder in all of its history. Jessie Keith had not only been robbed of her life, but stripped of her childhood innocence. When her body was found, it was so badly mutilated that many feared Listowell had been paid a visit by Jack the Ripper, the elusive Whitechapel murderer from London, England. The Ripper gained his name from the sadistic way in which he left his victims, often gutted like an animal and arranged in a sick display of indulgence. Jessie Keith had suffered the same fate. During this time, the notorious Jack the Ripper was still at large, so the authorities called in Detective Murray to solve the case. Listowell was in a frenzy after the discovery of Jessie's body and desperate to find a killer. The whole community assisted Murray in his investigations. Tramps and vagrants were hauled in from all over the countryside, but there was nothing to go on. Murray was at a loss as to who committed this evil deed. Without the luxury of forensic science to find the killer, Murray needed old-fashioned hard evidence and reliable witnesses in order to find the perpetrator of such a horrible crime. This came in the form of a black valise. It was found in the woods among some rocks, and its contents were to turn the investigation around. Inside were the blood-stained overalls used by the macabre killer, along with the victim's shoes. But mysteriously, the valise contained items of women's clothing that did not belong to either the murderer or the victim. These items had been stolen from a Mrs. McLeod, and there were witnesses to prove it.
I met a man on my way back from Elsa Craig. We had some talk about the weather, and I went on my way. The next afternoon, I took the same route by the woods and came across the man again. This time he was disguised in a lady's bonnet and a black skirt. And he carried a black valise. It was very strange. We didn't speak, but anyone could see he was a man.
So, tell me what you saw.
I saw a man on the road south of Britain. He was carrying a valise and he looked like a tramp with nowhere to go. I got close enough and I heard him mumbling to himself like a lunatic.
There was this sorry-looking man on the back porch begging for food. He must have been passing through. He was carrying this black valise. I remember thinking at the time it was strange the way he held on to that bag for all his life. I just stepped out for a moment, and when I came back, he was gone.
Do you recognize this man?
That's him.
It wasn't long before the recurring valise and its contents led to the murderer. Amédée Chattel. One night, he coldly admitted his guilt, describing every gory detail to the detective.
You could knife me, you could shoot me, you Even hang me. It doesn't matter anymore. It's all finished. Every single thing is finished. You want to put an end to my life? That's it. Be my guest. I tell ya. That little girl, when I had the chance, I gutted her like a pig. Oh, that gave me the strength. That gave me the godliness. Oh, yeah. Do you know what I could do with this pen?
Murray said that Chattel had acted under the possession of a fiendish frenzy, but was too disturbed by the confession to ever speak of the case again. When we come back, neither victim nor perpetrator of such horror rest easy.
This program contains subject matter that may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
While Chattel may not have been Jack the Ripper, his ghastly crime and crazed demeanor earned him the name, the Listowell Ripper. However, he is famous not only for his horrific crime. Amadei Chattel was the first prisoner to be hanged in the New Stratford jail. At this time, the people of Listowell knew that Jessie Keith could not be at rest. Many saw her apparition as they went to pay their respects, and some said they had seen her dancing around the gravestones. While Jessie was laid to rest in Listowell Cemetery, Chattel was to be forever condemned, buried in the depths of the very yard in which he met his well-deserved death. It is here where our story continues. This dark chapter in Stratford and Listowell history echoes into the present day. Stratford Jail was built just before the story of Jessie Keith's death hit the headlines. This prison was made to be a fortress. Nobody got in unless they were meant to be there, and it was impossible for anyone to ever get out. The same remains true today, or so it was believed, until a recent event caused one lady to question this theory.
I have a friend who worked with me in the prison until recently. She's so frightened by what happened, she refuses to tell this story again. This is what she's told me, and in all honesty, I don't blame her for being so scared.
Can I get back to you a minute?
One day she was at work and she's looking out at the prison yard and she sees this man standing there holding this suitcase. She finds this kind of strange because this part of the prison isn't even used anymore. So she takes a closer look and she notices that this man is just staring at her with this grim and scary face. So she looks at him and she notices that his face is so realistic until it dawns on her that he's not even there. She can see right through his entire body to the back wall. And that's when she noticed that he drops his suitcase to the ground, but she didn't hear a thing, not a sound. She ran in the hallway shaking and she tells me what she had seen. She takes me back in there, but there's no one there. The guy's gone.
Right against the wall.
Sometime later, we're going through some old archive files, and all of a sudden I hear a yelp from my friend. she drops everything to the ground, and she's just standing there looking down, staring there almost as if she couldn't speak. Just shaking, and I ask her what's wrong, being a little startled myself, and she says,
"That's him! That's the guy I saw out there! That's him!"
When I looked down at the picture, I saw his name, Amedee Chattel, the first guy ever hanged at Stratford Jail. I was stunned.
The haunting of Stratford Jail in recent years is but one story emerging from the restless spirits that lurk beneath the fall events of 1894. In Listowell Cemetery, at the final resting place of young Jesse Keith, late at night, you may see the specter of a girl dressed in red. And if you listen hard, you can hear her voice singing among the rustle of the trees. It is clear this young girl, robbed of her childhood innocence, may never rest in peace.
Those were just a few of the ghostly inhabitants of Creepy Canada. Tune in next time for more tales and happenings from the other side. I'm Brian O'Day. Thanks for watching.